20 years ago, the Airbus partners and Boeing joined hands to look into creating an all-new ultra-large aircraft. It didn't happen because Boeing decided the market wasn't big enough for an all-new aircraft, but Airbus decided it would be. And that's when their market forecasts completely changed. Airbus has consistently seen a market for well over 1,500 aircraft, whereas Boeing has always seen it around the 800 aircraft mark. We asked the two protagonists why they have such opposing views.
We feel confident in our global market forecast in the very large aircraft segment of over 1,700 aircraft in the next 20 years. This is mainly driven by the fact that when you look at the traffic today, roughly about 5 trillion RPKs traveled at the end of 2012. Half of that was traveled by the advanced regions. This is about 1 billion people. The other half of that traffic was being traveled by the other 6 billion people in the emerging regions. And when you look at the growth, roughly about 4.7% over the next 20 years, that growth will occur in the emerging regions. And the populations will be centered in cities, traveling not just within a region, but also connecting various regions. Latin America to China is a good example.
One of the reasons we do our long-term forecast every year is so we can incorporate our latest thinking on the market as well as the latest trends in the market. And when we look at the big airplane segment, we see it to be a relatively small segment in terms of units, about 760 units over the next 20 years, but large in terms of investment at $280 billion, and that's why we built the 747-8 freighter as well as the Intercontinental. Now, that is also a segment that really hasn't performed up to our expectations over the last several years. We've made some adjustments in our forecast to make sure that it is realistic and does reflect the trends in the market, but it is still a significant market. We think we're still well positioned with the products we have, and we'll continue to make those products better.
The softness in the VLA market over the last half decade was mainly driven by the fact that we were sitting in a financial crisis. And during this uncertain period, airlines were taking capacity out. ASKs were being contracted over the last 5 years. So the mentality of an airline was, I have the risk of filling seats. But if you look today, the last 3 consecutive quarters, we've had traffic growth. And when you compound that with the 4.7% growth in traffic, where over the next 15 years air traffic will double, now is the time for airlines to think about how do I capture that traffic. And with the VLA, this is the only aircraft that can rationalize the traffic growth in the future.
So there you have it. Boeing remain pessimistic, whereas Airbus are confident there'll be 1,700 ultra-large aircraft out there and they'll deliver at least half of them. We now wait for the market to speak. Max Kingsley Jones, Flight Global, Paris Air Show.